Hello everybody, this is another Hot Wheels Collector video. Today we are going to be taking a look at the 86 Ford Thunderbird Pro Stock. I will mention that this casting was first introduced to the Hot Wheels lineup in 2012, and since then it's only had 4 different recolors, including this one. So this casting has not been used much by the Hot Wheels team at all, which is very surprising as usually the Hot Wheels team use all of their castings very frequently. I will mention that this casting was retooled in 2022 for the 2023 mainline, and the main changes which occurred there was changing some of the metal parts which featured on previous releases of this car to plastic parts. And these changes were made to cost cut and also make Mattel's profit margin larger when they do sell this car to consumers. Now, I will mention that this car does feature in the Hot Wheels Drag Strip mini-series for 2023, and this is car number 4 out of 10 in that set. I would also like to mention this is car number 107 out of 250 for 2023. Now, I will mention where I actually found this car then. So I found this car in a local Smyth toy superstore at the price of £1.69. That's sort of the standard price here in the UK for Hot Wheels mainlines, and I actually bought this car about 2 months ago, so I've had it for a very long time, just sitting around as I had other cars to prioritise. But I've finally opened this car because I think it's just a fantastic model and I absolutely love the colour on this thing. But I will talk more in depth about the Hot Wheels model in just a little bit, but first of all let me give you some facts about the real life car. So the best engine available for this car, which had the most power, was a 5-litre V8 EFI engine. Now EFI stands for electronic fuel injection. This replaces the need for a carburetor that mixes air and fuel together. Instead, the EFI means fuel is injected directly into the engine manifold or cylinders. I would also like to mention that this engine produces 150 horsepower and 366 Newton meters of torque, converting to 270 pound-feet of torque. I would also like to mention that this car does have a 0-60 time in 9.2 seconds, and this car also does have a top speed of 124 miles per hour or 199 kilometers per hour. This, however, is theoretical and this has never been tested, so we don't know for sure. I would also like to mention that this car is rear-wheel drive and it also does have a 4-speed automatic gearbox. This shape of Thunderbird was produced between 1982 and 1986. However, only the 1986 model year of this car had a V8 engine option available to it. And this here is the Hot Wheels model of the Thunderbird generation, which replaced the one which we are looking at today. I would also like to mention that this car had an original MSRP price in 1986 of around $11,300 all the way up to $14,600, and when inflation is taken into consideration, this converts to $30,700 all the way up to about $39,700, and that converts to £24,200 all the way up to £31,300. And now this car has a value of around $6,000 and that converts to £4,700. But anyways, that is a fully fact about this car, so now let's move on to my showcase of the Hot Wheels model. Alright, so kicking off this showcase then, we'll first of all take a look at the side of this car, and I'll first of all mention the wheel choice on this thing. So this car is rolling on the 5-spoke wheels in the back, and on the front it is rolling on the muscle car 5-spoke wheels. Now then, the rear wheels have been painted completely in white, whilst the front wheels have been done in black with a white lip around them. Next up, for the actual colour of the car then, it is being painted in this metallic red colour. It is almost resemblant of wine red. It's very similar colour, and I love the colour on this car. I think it looks superb. Next up, for the tamper work on the side of this car then, it is absolutely plentiful. So first of all, we have the Hot Wheels logo being tampered on here in white. We also have some stars featuring just below that. Now 2 of these stars have been done in orange and 2 of these stars have been done in yellow. And then below those stars we do have this striping which continues across the entirety of this vehicle, and these stripes have been done in white, orange, yellow and also black. A really interesting look, which I can honestly say I've never seen on a car before, but it actually works with this red colour really nicely in my opinion, which the rest of the car has been painted in. I will mention that this striping does continue across the entirety of the side of this car. Next up we have the Colucci logo, which has been tampered on here in orange. I personally had no idea what this logo meant, but after some research I found out that this is John Colucci's logo, and he has been a designer at Mattel since 2007, and he currently works on packaging design. Next up we have 4 more stars featuring here in the same colours the previous stars featured in, and we also do have the Hot Wheels graphics logo being tampoed on here in white as well. Next up we do have the MWG logo being tampoed on here in yellow, the same yellow used to create some of the side striping of this car. Now I have been researching this a ton and I cannot find a single thing on it, but please do let me know in the comments section down below if you know anything about this logo. I'd love to hear all about it. Next up we do have the Sam K logo. Now I could find out what this means, and this stands for Sam Cock, and he has been a designer at Mattel since 2010. Next up we do have the Hot Wheels writing, which has been tampoed on here in orange, and we also do have quite a few different white dots featuring along the side skirt of this car. Anyways, that is it for the tampo work along the side of this car then, so now onto the metal casting itself. So first of all, I will mention that you can just about see some of the rear light of this car, which has been moulded into the metal casting here, and it does continue around from the back of the car to the side just a little bit. We also do have the door handle of this car featuring in the metal casting here as well, and hopefully you can see here this car's side marker light does feature in the metal casting here in the form of an indentation. It is a very minor indentation, however it is still there. Hopefully you can see that this car is left-hand drive. It also only has one seat in there, and finally I would like to mention that the interior plastic on this car is chrome. And finally, I will mention that the side windows of this car have been wound up, and the window plastic on this car is completely see-through. I will also mention that this casting does not have any wing mirrors, but that's totally okay as some drag cars don't have wing mirrors, so I will let the Hot Wheels team off with this one. But anyways, that is it for the side of this car, so now let's move on to the front of this thing. Alright, so taking a look at the front of this car then, even though there is no tampo work here, there's still plenty of detail in the metal casting, so let's get straight into it. First of all, I will mention that the headlights of this car do feature moulded into the metal casting here, in the form of an indentation. Now you could easily add your own details to these headlights using something like Sharpie or acrylic paint. I will also mention that the main front grille of this car also does feature moulded into the metal casting here as well. I will also mention that the indicator or turn signal lights of this car also feature in the metal casting here, once again in the form of an indentation, and once again you could easily add your own details to these using something like Sharpie or acrylic paint. And finally, I will mention that this car does have a front splitter, and once again this does feature in the metal casting here. Awesome detailing there. But anyways, let's move on to the next side of this car. Alright, so taking a look at the next side of this car then, it is the exact same as the previous side, so I'm not going to bore you with going over everything all over again. You can pause the video here for yourself if you're looking for something specific. If not, let's move straight on to the rear of this car. Alright, so taking a look at the rear of this car then, even though there's no tampo work here, there's still plenty of detail in the form of metal casting. So let's get straight into it. First of all, I will mention that the rear spoiler of this car does feature moulded into the metal casting here, in the form of two separate fins. And this spoiler has been done in a ducktail style, which I think complements the design of this car fantastically. Next up, I will mention that this car does actually have a parachute moulded into the metal casting here, and there is the parachute featuring in the metal casting from a different view. Hopefully you can see it a little bit better from here. I will also mention that the rear lights of this car do feature moulded into the metal casting here. You could easily add your own details to these rear lights using something like Sharpie or acrylic paint. However, honestly they don't look too bad as the entire car has been painted in red, so the rear lights do actually look like they have been detailed even though they haven't been. I would also like to mention that the Thunderbird logo does feature in the rear lights of this car in the metal casting. This is in the form of a protrusion from the rest of the body of the car, and this detailing is accurate to the real life car, as the real life car does also have the Thunderbird logo featuring in its rear lights. Great attention to detail there from the Hot Wheels team. I can honestly say I was not expecting this level of detail. It's absolutely fantastic. But there you go, that's really it for the rear of this car. And yeah, onto the next side of this car. Alright, so next up onto the top of this car then, the detail does not stop yet. First of all, you can see the spoiler of this car, which does feature in the metal casting here from a top view. Hopefully you can see that there is a protrusion from the rest of the casting here, which I believe is meant to represent a bolt holding the trunk of this car down. Lots of drag cars do have bolts or latches holding the trunk and hood of the cars down. Next up, I will mention that this car does have a roll cage, and this roll cage has been created through the chrome interior plastic. Next up, I will mention that there is no additional detailing featuring on the roof of this car. Next up, I will mention that this car does not have any windshield wipers in the window plastic. To be honest, I will let them off though, because it would have been really hard to have added windshield wipers to the window plastic here, due to that large intake which has also been created through the window plastic, and hence is connected to the front windshield of this car. So yes, I will let them off with this one. Next up, onto the hood of this car then, you will notice that there are 4 protrusions featuring on the hood of this car in the metal casting. Now what I believe these are meant to represent is hood pins or bolts holding the hood of this car down. Really nice attention to detail from the Hot Wheels team there, giving this car a more dragster look, which is exactly what this casting was going for. So it's great to see those details there. Next up, hopefully you can see that there is some tamper work featuring on the hood of this car. And most of this tamper work is in the form of striping, which does continue from the side of the car. This striping has been done in the same colours of white, orange, yellow and black. We also do have the 4 stars returning from the side of the car, done in yellow and orange tampo as well. And finally, we do have the K Oils logo, which has been tampoed on here in white. I'm guessing this is just a fictional brand that the Hot Wheels team have decided to create, as I've been researching this brand on the internet for quite some time and I couldn't find any footprint of this brand whatsoever on the internet. But if you've got any extra information about this brand, maybe it is a real brand and I'm wrong, please do let me know in the comments section down below. And the final thing which I do want to mention is the supercharger intake of this car has been created through the window plastic here, and hence it is completely see-through. I would also like to mention that on top of this supercharger intake, we do have a few dots, and these dots do protrude from the rest of the plastic here. And finally, hopefully you can see that the front of this intake does actually have an indentation. Now this is meant to represent the hole which would feature on a real life supercharger intake. I've also just noticed that there are also 2 more bolts or hood pins featuring at the front of this hood as well. But anyways, that is it for the top of this car, and that is also it for my showcase of this car. So now let's move on to my final thoughts and review on this thing. Alright, so now it is time for my final thoughts and review on this car. I'm a big fan of this release of this casting. The casting in itself is really nice, but I think the thing which I love about this release in particular is the colour choice. This red just looks so good to me, and I really do hope that in the future the Hot Wheels team decide to use this red on more models, because honestly I think this red might be one of my absolute favourite colours that the Hot Wheels team have in their lineup, and I know that the Hot Wheels team have so many fantastic colours, so saying that this is my favourite colour is definitely something and definitely does mean a lot. I think it is just so good looking. I also really do like the tamper work on this release of this casting as well. I think the crazy side decors just suit this thing fantastically, and I'm pleased that they decided to go with this crazy look rather than front and rear tampo, because I think that would give this car a more factory fresh look, which obviously is not what this casting is going for. It's clearly a drag car, and hence it should have some crazy side livery to it instead of a more factory fresh look, but that's just my opinion there. I also do like the wheel choice on this car. I like the fact that they are mismatched, and I like the fact that the rear wheels are larger than the front. It overall just gives this car a more drag car aesthetic, which again is what this casting is going for, and I am very pleased to announce that this specific release of this casting portrays that drag look very well. Now then, I will mention that this casting does not have any wing mirrors or any windshield wipers, but both of those not being there is kind of not an issue, as most drag cars don't have either of them. And also I think the reason why it does not have any windshield wipers is because of that large intake which is created through the window plastic, and I think it would have been really hard for the Hot Wheels team to have molded some windshield wipers into that plastic due to that intake being there. And there you go, I highly recommend you pick up this release of this casting. I think it looks so good, and I genuinely think that this is the best release of this casting to come out so far, and I also cannot see any better releases of this casting coming in the future, because this colour is, as I've already said, so nice. But anyways, that does lead me onto my score out of 10 for this car. So what am I going to give this car out of 10? It is going to be receiving a totally deserved 10 out of 10. This release of this casting is absolutely fantastic, and this casting in general is really nice. And I really do recommend that you pick this car up. Definitely do not sleep on it. It's so good looking, and you definitely will not regret your purchase. But anyways, that is it for this video. So if you guys did enjoy, make sure to like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Remember, you can also press that notification bell so you do not miss new uploads. Remember, you can also share this video with any friends, family, or any groups who may be interested. But remember, don't feel pressure to if you don't feel like you have anybody who may be interested. You watching this video all the way to the end means so much to me, and I really do thank you for making it all the way up until this point. But anyways, that is it for this video, so I hope you guys did enjoy, and I really do hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye bye everyone.